Let me tell you something most people won't admit. We all know that thing we're supposed to do. That email sitting in drafts, that project deadline creeping closer, that conversation we've been avoiding for weeks. And yet, we scroll, we clean, we suddenly remember we need to reorganize our entire bookshelf. Procrastination. We treat it like laziness, like a character flaw, like something we could fix if we just tried harder. But here's what nobody tells you. Chronic procrastinators aren't lazy. They're often the opposite. They're anxious, they're perfectionists, they're emotionally exhausted. And beneath every delayed task is a psychology so complex, so deeply human, that once you understand it, you'll never see procrastination the same way again. See, when you watch someone procrastinate, it looks like avoidance. But when you look inside their mind, it's a war. Because procrastination isn't about the task itself, it's about how the task makes them feel. Psychologists have found that chronic procrastinators have heightened activity in their amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions, especially fear. When they think about starting something, their brain doesn't say, "Let's get this done." It says, "Danger, threat, escape." So they do. Not because they don't care, but because their emotional system is screaming louder than their logical one. They're not choosing distraction, they're choosing relief. And that's the trap. Because every time they delay, the anxiety doesn't disappear, it compounds. The task grows heavier, the guilt gets louder, and the cycle deepens. 1. The perfectionist's prison. For many procrastinators, the problem isn't that they don't want to do something well, it's that they want to do it too well. Perfectionism and procrastination are twins dressed in different clothes. On the surface, a perfectionist seems driven, disciplined, successful. But underneath, they're paralyzed by a single terrifying question. What if I'm not good enough? So they wait. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect conditions. But perfection is a mirage. It never arrives. And the longer they wait, the more impossible the task becomes in their mind. Psychologists call this the perfection paradox, the belief that anything less than perfect is failure. So instead of starting imperfectly, they don't start at all. Because in their world, doing nothing feels safer than doing something badly. It's not procrastination, it's self-protection. They'd rather be seen as someone who didn't try than someone who tried and failed. 2. The overwhelmed brain. Then there's another type. The ones who aren't afraid of failure, they're just drowning. Modern life has turned our brains into air traffic control centers. Work emails, family responsibilities, social obligations, personal goals, all competing for attention at once. When everything feels urgent, nothing gets done. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. When your brain is forced to make too many choices, it starts shutting down. And procrastination becomes the brain's way of saying, "I can't process this right now." So they avoid. Not because the task is too hard, but because their mental bandwidth is already maxed out. They're not being irresponsible, they're emotionally overloaded. And for them, procrastination isn't a choice, it's a symptom of burnout they haven't named yet. 3. The fear of success. Here's where it gets strange. Some people procrastinate not because they're afraid of failing, but because they're afraid of succeeding. Think about it. What happens after you finish that big project? Expectations rise. People notice you. Suddenly, you're someone who delivers, and that means the next task has to be even better. Success creates pressure, and for some minds, that pressure feels unbearable. So they sabotage themselves before they even start. Psychologists call this self-handicapping. It's when you create obstacles for yourself so that if you fail, you have an excuse. I didn't try hard enough. I ran out of time. I wasn't in the right headspace. But the real reason, they're terrified of what success might demand from them. So they stay small. Not because they can't grow, but because growing feels too dangerous. 4. The dopamine deficit. But let's talk biology for a second, because procrastination isn't just psychological, it's chemical. Our brains are wired to seek immediate rewards. That's dopamine. the feel-good chemical that reinforces behavior. When you finish a task, you get a hit of dopamine. But here's the problem. For chronic procrastinators, that reward system is broken. Studies show that people who struggle with procrastination often have lower baseline dopamine levels. That means their brain doesn't get the same satisfaction from completing tasks that others do. So they turn to instant gratification instead. Social media, video games, snacks, anything that gives them a quick dopamine spike without effort. It's not weakness, it's their brain desperately trying to feel good. And the cruel irony is the more they procrastinate, the worse they feel about themselves, which lowers their dopamine even further. It becomes a cycle they can't escape without rewiring their reward system entirely. 5. The emotional avoidance. For many, procrastination is about running from feelings, not tasks. Maybe the project reminds them of something painful. Maybe it's tied to someone who hurt them. Maybe it represents a version of themselves they're not ready to face yet. Psychologists call this experiential avoidance, when you delay something not because it's difficult, but because it triggers uncomfortable emotions. Shame, regret, inadequacy, fear. So they push it away. Not consciously, but emotionally. And over time, the task becomes wrapped in so much emotional weight that even thinking about it feels exhausting. They're not lazy, they're protecting themselves from a wound they haven't healed yet. 6. The all-or-nothing mindset. Then there's the group that says, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it perfectly. This is binary thinking, and it's one of the most destructive patterns in procrastination. They see tasks as complete success or total failure. There's no middle ground. So when they realize they don't have enough time to do something perfectly, they abandon it entirely. They'd rather submit nothing than submit something incomplete. But here's the truth. Progress is messy. Growth is incremental. And sometimes good enough is actually good enough. But their brain won't accept that. So they stay stuck, waiting for a version of themselves that doesn't exist yet. 7. The identity crisis. Here's something most people miss. Chronic procrastinators often have a fractured sense of self. They don't know who they are when they're not under pressure. Their entire identity has been built around last-minute panic. The all-nighters, the frantic scrambling, the "I work best under pressure" narrative. But that's not confidence, it's coping. And deep down, they're terrified of what happens if they start early, if they plan ahead, if they actually give themselves time. Because then they'd have to face the truth. Am I really capable without the adrenaline? So they keep procrastinating. Not because they enjoy it, but because it's the only version of themselves they know how to be. 8. The rebellion. And then there's this. Some people procrastinate as an act of defiance, not against the task itself, but against the person or system demanding it. Maybe they spent their childhood being controlled, micromanaged, told what to do and when to do it. So as adults, procrastination becomes their silent rebellion. It's their way of saying, "You can't make me," even if the only person they're hurting is themselves. Psychologists call this passive resistance. It's not logical, it's emotional, and it often stems from a deep need for autonomy that was never respected. So they delay, not because they don't care, but because doing it on their own terms, even late, feels like reclaiming power. 9. The comparison trap. Social media has made procrastination worse, because now, while you're struggling to start, you're watching everyone else finish. You see their success, their productivity, their polished outcomes, and your brain registers it as, everyone else has it together. I'm the only one failing. But here's the truth. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. And that comparison doesn't motivate you, it paralyzes you. Because the gap between where you are and where they seem to be feels too wide to cross. So you don't even try. You just scroll and sink deeper into shame. 10. The way out. So what's the answer? How do you break free from chronic procrastination? First, stop treating it like a moral failure. It's not about discipline. It's about understanding what emotion you're avoiding. Are you afraid of judgment? overwhelmed by options, burned out from caring too much? Name it. Because once you know what you're running from, you can face it. Second, shrink the task. Your brain isn't afraid of the work, it's afraid of the enormity. So break it down. 5 minutes, 1 sentence, 1 step. That's it. Third, forgive yourself. Self-criticism doesn't motivate, it paralyzes. And every time you shame yourself for procrastinating, you're making it harder to start next time. Compassion is the antidote. And finally, understand this. You are not your procrastination. It's a pattern, not a personality. And patterns can be rewritten. Because here's what chronic procrastinators need to hear. You're not broken, you're not lazy, you're not a failure, you're human. And your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Protect you from pain. The problem isn't you. It's that nobody taught you how to feel safe while moving forward. But now you know, and knowing is the first step toward changing. So the next time you catch yourself procrastinating, pause. Don't judge. Just ask, what am I really avoiding? Because the answer to that question might just set you free.